You are now listening to The Unwavering, the movement dedicated to educating and empowering the brave men and women who have or are still serving our great nation. This is Kevin with another episode of The Unwavering. Before we begin, a huge shout out to the military community, the active duty service members, the reservists, and those veterans out there, as well as their families who continue to support them. It's an amazing opportunity to have this platform and to have this opportunity to speak to all of you. So I hope that you guys are finding our content useful. And as always, if you guys have questions, if you guys have topics or recommendations that you would like us to cover, please let us know. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic over to Sarah and let her introduce herself.
Hey, thanks, Kevin, for having me on. My name is Sarah Maples. I served just over 7 years as an Air Force intelligence officer, including deployments to Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan. Post-military, I have primarily worked in the military and veteran space, including serving as the first woman female director of national security and foreign affairs for the Veterans of Foreign Wars in Washington, D.C. I moved to Jacksonville, Florida in 2018, and I primarily focus on military transition and the women veteran experience as a writer, speaker, military transition advisor, founder of the Veterans Resource blog After the DD-214, and president of the Women in Defense First Coast chapter.
The amount of different positions that you're holding is incredible. That's definitely something to be proud of, something that I'm sure serves as an inspiration, not just to women, but to veterans, period. Male, female, it doesn't matter. So first off, thank you so much for dedicating a little bit of your time today to come on board. We are ecstatic to have you here, and after connecting with you on LinkedIn and chatting over the last couple weeks, getting to really discover why this is your passion is what inspired me to have you on here. I think you're doing something that's really incredible, and I'm just glad to have the opportunity to share it with the listeners.
I appreciate that. It's very exciting, and I always loved helping out in the vet community. It's been very good to me since I left the service, and anything I can do to give back is very important to me.
Well, before we get to what you're doing outside of the service, can you give us a little bit of insight as to your time in the military? How was it that your military career led to where you are now? You went from Air Force to the VFW to Women in Defense. Can you kind of walk us through each of those?
Well, I could, but that implies a straight line. Actually, my life has been very sort of accidental. I actually did not want to join the military initially. I did so because when I was a freshman in high school, my mother had her fourth child and he has special needs. And that really wiped my parents out financially. So my mother said, if you want to go to college, you have to find a way to pay for it. And the Air Force said, we'll pay for it. And I said, okay. So I served 7.5 years, did not actually intend to get out. And then a number of factors came together when I was in Afghanistan that just said, it's time to leave. I really decided to get involved in the veteran community after serving as a VA school certifying official and academic advisor at a college, working with vets coming out of active duty and helping them use their GI Bill. There's just so much they didn't know about it and about civilian life. And I was like, I can do this, I can help them. And so I just continued to look for opportunities to help them, a lot of which have come around accidentally. So I worked at the Department of Veterans Affairs for a little while. That actually came about partially through a conversation in a lunchroom. Working at the VFW also came around through a chance encounter. I walked in thinking I was interviewing for a different position, and they offered me that one. I couldn't turn that down. It was such an amazing experience. And then I actually left and took a European sabbatical for 2.5 months to finish working on a novel. And then I've sort of been finding my way since then. I actually started my own business a couple of months ago, which has been an interesting process. So through all of that, staying involved with the military and with veterans, particularly women veterans, has been something that's been just core throughout all of that. And so I constantly seek out opportunities where I can continue to make a difference in that space.
That's incredible. And I'm glad that, one, you mentioned that it wasn't exactly a straight trajectory. I know myself, I'm definitely a planner. I like to be strategic and have multiple backup plans, but you're right. Sometimes you can have all the plans in the world and certain things happen, both good and bad, that kind of alter your path. So for everyone that's listening, don't expect that everything's going to always work out how you intend. And that could be good, that could be bad, but just be flexible, be ready, and have multiple backup plans in place because, as Sarah just mentioned, this is something that is always fluid. You being a service member you giving back to the community. There's so many different things that happen. So just remaining flexible is one of the best pieces of advice I can give you. Another thing that I'm happy that you mentioned was that when you started working for these different entities, you noticed that people were having issues with some of those basic things: how to enter the civilian workforce, how to reintegrate into society. And I think even now to this day, the more people I interview, the more people I connect with via this podcast and other things, it still shocks me that it doesn't matter if someone got out as an E1, as an E8, as an O4. There's still things that we have difficulties with. And it's weird to say it, but when I got out, I had served for 8 years, and I honestly didn't know how to negotiate for pay. I didn't know how to go through an interview process. I knew how to go through a board, a military board, but completely different world. So I'm glad that you did mention those things. And you're right, there's a lot more that needs to be done. And that's why I'm super excited to have you on here and learn more about women in defense and the things that you're doing to make a difference.
I completely agree. I think the military is really great at consuming your life in ways that are good and bad and removing anything that limits your focus on the mission. And the problem with that is then when veterans get to transition, it's more like falling off a cliff instead of a continued arc and a bridge into the next part of your life. When I was on active duty, I used to tell my airmen all the time, I don't care how long you're going to be in the military. I don't care if you're going to be in for 2 years or 32 years. This is not a career that lasts forever. You have to have another plan because eventually you're going to be out of the military and not always on your terms. And so I really encourage them to see this as sort of one piece of the puzzle as opposed to this is my entire life and I will never do anything other than the military, because that's just not the case.
Absolutely. Everything is a stepping stone and everything is an opportunity for you to go and achieve more, in this case, help others. So, absolutely, I could not agree with that more. When we speak about Women in Defense, why was it started and what does it do?
So, Women in Defense is a national nonprofit that was founded to engage, cultivate, and advance women in all aspects of national security. It was originally started informally in 1979 by a small group of women. It was then incorporated in 1985 and in 2009 became an affiliate of the National Defense Industrial Association, or NDIA. And Women in Defense currently has more than 22 chapters around the country who are promoting professional growth through networking, education, and career development. It also supports the next generation of women in our field through mentorship and the support of STEM education, including chapter scholarships, as well as the National Horizon Scholarship, which provides financial assistance to women either employed or planning careers in defense or national security areas, including those studying in STEM fields.
I started reading the different things that you're doing for networking, for education, and really providing opportunities to women. I thought it was incredible. I think that we need to do more if we expect for service members to get out and have truly successful lives. Number one, we need to start educating them earlier. And I don't always mean educating them in the sense of college or things like that, but I mean educating them in how to carry themselves, how to build genuine relationships. And I think more than anything, that's what you guys are doing, is you are giving them the soft skills as well as the educational pieces to help shape their futures. So I think that's awesome. And I really want to ask a little bit more about the program. And one of the questions that I have for you is, the last time we spoke, you mentioned the fact that men are often surprised that these networking events or community outreach activities are inclusive to them as well. Why is it so important for men to be a part of Women in Defense?
That was such a great question that you asked in the comments. So people are very surprised when I say that men can and actually are encouraged to be members of Women in Defense or to attend our events. Our chapter's first president, Debbie Gray, recently summarized it really well by saying that Women in Defense is focused on women, not for women. And some of the reasons why that's so important is if only women attend our events, then we don't grow the messages that often emerge from women-focused events. So to use a military phrase, we sort of become a self-licking ice cream cone, everybody saying the same thing over and over to themselves, but not really expanding that message and expanding the reach. Also, to be honest, men still hold the majority of seats at the table. If we can't get them involved, then that's a limit on the access to opportunities and resources that Women in Defense have access to because we just have a smaller reach at the moment. we have amazing women that come and speak at these events. And if men don't attend, they don't get to see them, then they don't get to advocate for them to speak at other events. And again, we stay in this really closed basket of women who are talking to women, and we all sort of know where the issues are, but we kind of can't break out of it. So having men get in there also helps expand, especially as a women veteran. I mean, we're such a small percentage of the population that having male veterans or other men who can help us expand and have the sort of same successful careers that we had in the military is just critical to success.
Yes, 100%. You mention these things and they're so true. There's many times where I see events posted on LinkedIn or Eventbrite, all these different locations, right? And it says like women in defense or women's chapter. And I always wonder like, oh man, that would be cool to go talk to them. But I automatically assumed previously that if it was titled for women, then that means that myself being a male veteran couldn't attend. And so it is kind of difficult because I want to give back to veterans, period. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, I want to help our community be successful. But me being naive in the beginning, I thought that those were exclusive solely to women. And it kind of seemed like from my perspective as a male, like, oh, maybe they don't want me to attend. So it's unfortunate because I think that starts a trend. You're right. The fact is that right now, males actually for, as far as we can see, males have owned a majority of these seats. So I'm excited that you guys are mentioning to males from the community that, hey, you know what? We need to stand together. We need your help just as much as you need ours. And together we can accomplish the goal of helping veterans reach their truest potential. So I'm definitely excited to hear that. And another thing I'll mention in regards to what you guys are doing and kind of the way I see it is the ability for you to connect with people from different experiences opens your mind to more possibilities. If it's solely a women's group, then maybe you can't see things from the male's perspective. If it's solely a male only dominated group, then we can't see things from the women perspective. And an example I'll share with you is when I was speaking to my friend Amanda, we were talking about just that. We were talking about the fact that her being a female veteran, she would often attend military events and they would thank her husband for her service. And even though she was standing right next to him, they automatically assumed that she wasn't a veteran. And she said that that feeling that she was an invisible person was kind of detrimental. And I'm glad that she told me that because I don't know. I'm not a female veteran, so I have no idea what you guys go through. So the opportunity for me to hear her out and get to know what you guys go through on a daily basis was really eye-opening.
I actually wrote an article in 2017 for The Atlantic titled The Inconvenience of Being a Woman Veteran that really focused on sort of how we didn't really fit when we were in the military, and then we don't really fit when we're out of the military either, and some of the things that happen to us on a regular basis. I used an example of a story in there where I was working at VFW representing 1.7 million service members, veterans, and their families in front of the Secretary of Defense and senior officials. And I sit down with my other veteran coworkers from VFW, and there were 2 civilian men who were there as well. And they started talking, and one of the vets asked me if I'd ever slept in a Connex. And I was like, well, no, I haven't slept in one, but I worked in one when I was in Afghanistan. And one of the civilian men turned to me and he goes, oh, are you a military brat? And
yeah, that's...
a military... I mean, I am, but that's not why I was in Afghanistan. I mean, I just said Afghanistan. We don't take our kids to combat zones. I mean, but it was so ingrained that I couldn't possibly have a connection to the military unless it came from a male family member that, I have to actually continue to justify my service. Even when I was at VFW, which gets a really bad rap, and it's actually wonderful. I loved working there, but I would meet people in the Pentagon and elsewhere, and they'd be like, you're VFW? I am actually. Imagine that, a woman who served and in a combat zone. And as you pointed out, what Amanda Huffman is doing with Airman Mom and the Women of the Military book and podcast is really important because it helps get those stories out and helps normalize, which is something that's important to me. I write a lot more fiction and poetry that works on focusing on normalizing the concept of a woman serving and making that a concept that's not so foreign to people so that when we meet people, and I'll be honest, women do it too. Women meet other women and we don't necessarily assume that they serve because we are such a small percentage of the population. And so changing those assumptions and making sure that we're not invalidating the service of women and all the things that they faced when they were in by assuming that it's the man that's with them who actually served their country and not the women.
You're right. It's just wild to think about, because if you and I were standing in a room and let's say they assume that both of us were prior military, even then I think there would be certain judgments that would be placed. They would probably assume that I spent more time in a combat zone than you, which is not true. And I have no problem admitting that. But you're right. There's a lot of stereotypes and stigmas out there surrounding women and the roles that they serve in the military. A lot of people think that maybe they only serve as nurses or as attorneys at JAG or different things like that. And the fact of the matter is they don't. When I was in aviation, I served alongside women who worked on helicopters. They worked as crew chiefs manning 50 cals on our helicopters. So it's important that we highlight that you guys do so much more than just serve in administrative or medical roles. You guys are just as important to the fight as we are, and coming home, we should value you just as much as we would a male counterpart. Talking about your organization, is there a selection process or a fee associated with being part of Women in Defense? Are there prerequisites that individuals must meet prior to joining?
There are no prerequisites for joining aside from having some sort of tie or interest in defense and national security. Membership is, as we mentioned, open to women and men. Our membership includes active military, veterans, members of the defense industry, business owners, government employees, and academia. Pretty much anybody who touches that defense industrial space is invited. Membership is free for government employees and active military, and only $40 per year for industry and academia members. And we also have a corporate sponsorship program for businesses and organizations.
So does that mean if, say, there's a young woman out there who is interested in aerospace, military defense, or joining the military, but they haven't served, does that mean that they can join Women in Defense as well?
Absolutely. So we have a number of women who are in college. A number of the events that WID chapters across the country do is actually partnering with universities, so their engineering departments or other STEM departments, and combining the influence there to help those women figure out if a career in defense is something that interests them, and if so, how to go about it and what the advice is and some of the opportunities that are out there. One of the other things that we do is a lot of mentorship for even younger girls. My chapter, for example, had to postpone our event, but it's going to happen in October. It's our second annual Empower event, and it's really unique in that it's a half day of professional development geared towards women, so focused on but not just for women. But at the same time, we're actually having a STEM event for kids. And in both, we're highlighting women in that career field. So in the STEM activity, we actually have female subject matter experts who work in defense and national security who are introducing each activity through a video that shows these children, women who actually do those jobs, and can then connect what they're going to learn with the STEM teachers and with an actual career that they could pursue in the military or in defense. So we actually have some contractors and others who are doing the videos as well. So we just look for opportunities. We have other chapters who do things like coordinate with the Air Force Museum in Ohio to have a STEM day, and they have, grade school and elementary school children come participate in these events so that they can start early seeing women as role models, understanding what the opportunities are in the industry, and getting resources and advice for how they can go about pursuing them.
That is absolutely amazing. And just to clarify, this event in October is open to male veterans, male counterparts as well, correct?
Yes, all men, male veterans, men who work in the defense industry, men who just want to be allies and advocates of women. And our child's activity is open to both girls and boys.
Awesome. So guys, closer to October, we will definitely highlight this. If you are in the area, I strongly suggest that you be a part of this. You be a part of affecting not just women, but children as well, helping them develop an interest in STEM, in bettering their futures. Just a great opportunity to give back. So again, we will post that closer to October. And moving to the next question, can you share some examples of how being connected with Women in Defense has had an impact on either females, males, or children you work with?
So I have not been in this position very long, since October, so I don't have as many examples, but I can talk for me personally. It has expanded my network immensely. It has led to business opportunities that I never would have expected. It's connected me to not only fabulous women, but fabulous mentors, such as retired Air Force Colonel Rachel McCaffrey, who's our Women in Defense National Executive Director. Rear Admiral Marty Evans, who was the first woman to command a U.S. naval station and went on to become executive director of both Girl Scouts and the American Red Cross. We have some amazing, amazing people who participate in our chapters as advisors and members. And it's really also given me another outlet to connect with my community. As I mentioned at the beginning, I moved to Jacksonville in 2018, and Jacksonville and I were not meshing initially, and I was having a really difficult time getting into the community. I didn't know anybody here. One of the reasons that I moved here, though, was because it has one of the largest concentrations of women veterans in the country and a very active veteran community, and I really wanted to be involved with that. And I just happened to come across the past president, Amanda Hawkins, who's a retired senior Navy officer. And she invited me, I say, but really she ordered me. Her nickname is Commanda. Ordered me to come to the next Women in Defense networking event. And I showed up, and it just completely changed my experience with my city and my community. The women and the men who were there were amazing and so welcoming and just brilliant and engaged. It was so exciting. And so I was like, okay, that's it. I'm in. And then when Amanda ended up moving back to Arlington, Virginia, I was asked if I would take over as president, which of course is intimidating but exciting. And it's really given me a platform to help elevate other women, which is just super exciting. I mean, you can't have anything better than finding all these incredible women and being able to be like, here, front and center, get visible. Let me provide you this opportunity to speak or present your experience or interact with these other people who can then help advocate for you. And it's just been the most gratifying thing that I have done so far here in Jacksonville. I really love it.
That's so true. The opportunity to give back. A lot of people want to do something greater than themselves. That's why they go to the military. But I found that once you get out, it doesn't stop. That passion to continue to serve your community, to continue to help elevate others, it only grows. So it's no surprise to me that they selected you for your current position. And I have no doubt that it'll continue to grow and your ability to help others will continue to prosper. So that's awesome to hear. When we're talking about Women in Defense, how can people connect with you?
So they can find out about Women in Defense National at womenindefense.net. You can also find information about the chapters that we have and which chapter is closer to you on there, as well as the Horizon Scholarship and our annual conference, which is going to be in the DC area in the fall. You can also follow WID National at WID National on the different social media platforms. And if they are in Northeast Florida or want to know what the Northeast Florida chapter is doing, they can follow us at WID First Coast.
Well, guys, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today, but I hope that you guys found this episode interesting. If anything, it sparks conversation. And the biggest takeaway that I had, that I hope you have as well, is that this group is not exclusive to solely women. It's for everyone. It's for males, females. It's just an opportunity for you to give back and, again, grow your network and help future generations. So if you guys do want to be a part of something greater, you're looking for some way to give back, please join Women in Defense. Please be an advocate and help others. Before we go, Sarah, I will leave it to you to see if there's one piece of advice you would like to leave with our listeners.
I would say for transitioning service members, especially women, don't be afraid to take an opportunity that you don't feel ready for, because the only thing you're 100% ready for are the things you've already done.
Wisdom. All right, Sarah, well, thank you again for dedicating some of your time to us, and I look forward to working with you again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, Kevin. This has been fantastic.
Thanks for listening to The Unwavering. Please rate and comment on Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star and a great comment, and we may just read it on a future episode. Also, follow us on social platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to check back with us next week.